most cruel beasts and to pierce through walls of iron, right? So they were really, with that kind of, you know, with that kind of example, you know, they were ready to tear through whole cities, right? To jump through brick walls, you know, because anything is possible, you know, and that's what the Heavenly Father shows. He's the one that created all this, you know, so he's the author, right? And that same type of spiritual power, calling an angel to help, that's gonna come during the time of Jacob's trouble, when the elect, they get the spirit, they get spiritual, they get a higher an intense, more intense a portion of spiritual power, right? It says, thus they marched forward in their armor, having an helper from heaven, for the Lord was merciful unto them, and giving a charge upon their enemies like lions, they slew 11,000 footmen and 1,700 horsemen, and put all the others to flight. It says, many of them also being wounded escaped naked, and Lysias himself fled away shamefully, and so escaped, who as he was a man of understanding, casting with himself what loss he had, and considering what the Hebrews could and considering that the Hebrews could not be overcome, because the almighty power helped them, he sent unto them and persuaded them to agree to all reasonable conditions, and promised that he would persuade the king that he must needs be a friend unto them. Right? Right? So, hey, the Most High, that's an example of the Most High bringing the deliverance. Right? Get another example. This showing the power of the Heavenly Father. This is Acts 12, and I'm gonna start at 21. It says, It says, and upon a set day, Herod, which we know that Herod, he was an Edomite, right? It says, arrayed in royal apparel, sat upon his throne and made an oration unto them, which like the Apostle Tahar said, he was talking shit, right? And the people gave a shout, saying, it is the voice of a power and not of a man. So they were kissing his ass, right? And immediately the angel of the Lord smote him, because he gave not God the glory, and he was eaten of worms and gave up the ghost, right? It says, but the word of the Most High grew and multiplied, right? So what the Most High, even Antiochus, let's get what happened to Antiochus, Epiphanes. Daniel 8 verse Daniel 9, Daniel 8 and 9. It says, I'm gonna start at actually 8. It says, therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, talking about Alexander the Great, or the Greek, and for it came up 4 noble ones towards the 4 winds of heaven, right? And the noble ones is Ptolemy, Lysimachus, Cassander, and Seleucus, right? It says, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great towards the south, and towards the east, and towards the pleasant land, right? That's talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, right? And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and casted down some of the host, and out of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. And the stars of heaven is talking about the Israelites, the Negro, Latino, and Native American, which are the biblical Israelites, right? It says, yeah, he magnified himself he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down, and an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and practiced and prospered, right? Because there was, in that time, Israel, wicked Israelites wanted to conform to the ways of the heathen, you know? Let's get that real quick. This is First Maccabees 1:10. It says, and there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward there herein, that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Right, going back to Daniel 8. And I'm gonna skip down to verse 25, talking about the when Antiochus was reigning. It says, and through his policies also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, right? Because he was saying he was looking at himself like he was a god. And by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Right? And let me show how he was broken without hand real quick. Right? And that's through the spirit and power of Yahawah Hashem Yahawashi, because he sent a disease to him. You know? This is 2 Maccabees 9, verse I'm going to start at the top. It says, about that time came Antiochus with dishonor out of the country of Persia, for he had entered the city called Persepolis, and went about to rob the temple and to hold the city, whereupon the multitude running to defend themselves with their weapons put them to flight. And so it happened that Antiochus, being put to flight of the inhabitants, returned with shame. Now when he came to Ecbatana, news was brought him what had happened unto Nicanor and Timotheus. Then swelling with anger, he thought to avenge upon the Jews the disgrace done unto him by those that made him flee. Therefore commanded he his chariot men to drive without ceasing, and to dispatch the journey, the judgment of the Most High now following him. For he has spoken proudly in this sort, right, that he would come to Jerusalem and make it a common burying place to the Jews. So what, he wanted to slaughter any Israelite, you know, right? So what, the Most High had to deliver us from that. So this is how he did it. But the Lord Almighty, the power of Israel, talking about Yahawah, right, smote him with an incurable and invisible plague. Right? So hey, the Most High makes incurable plagues. Esau, Esau cannot do certain, he's not over the Most High, right? He's not gonna outsmart the Most High, right? It says, for as soon as he had spoken these words, a pain of the bowels that was remediless came upon him, and sore torments of the inner parts, right? He couldn't toss and turn, he couldn't sleep, you know, there was no remedy for that most justly, for he had tormented other men's bowels with many and strange torments. He was torturing them and such like that. Howbeit he nothing at all ceased from his bragging, but still was filled with pride, breathing out fire in his rage against the Jews, and commanding to haste the journey. But it came to pass that he fell down from his chariot, carried violently, so that having a sore fall, all the members of his body were much pain, right? His legs was hurting, his shoulder, he could have broke his back, you know? And thus he that a little afore thought he might command the waves of the sea, so proud was he beyond the condition of man, and weighed the high mountains in a balance, was now cast on the ground and carried in an horse litter, showing forth unto all the manifest power of the Most High, so that the worms rose up out of the body of this wicked man, and whilst he lived in sorrow and pain, his flesh fell away, and the filthiness of his smell was noisome to all his army. And the men that thought a little afore he could reach to the stars of heaven, no man could endure to carry for his intolerable stink. Here therefore, being plagued, he began to leave off his great pride, and to come to the knowledge of himself by the scourge of the Most High, his pain increasing every moment. Right? So that's how the Most High delivered the nation of Israel from Antiochus Epiphanes, right? And he's going to do the same thing to the new Antiochus, right? Whatever Edomite he comes back as, you know? He's probably back already, you know? He could have been Andrew Jackson, you know, through the Spirit. You know, because that's how these Edomites roll. They're proud as hell, you know. It's really all I want to get from that one. Let me get. And the main enemy he's gonna deliver us from Yahawah, Bahashem Yahawashi is gonna deliver us from